Why is Mandy Bohm not cut yet? Oh, yes. What's happening, everybody? It's been a break week here. We haven't gotten together and done this in almost 2 weeks, so I am ready to rock. Welcome to Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We got 13 fights to break down on the UFC Vegas 74 card. Coming off a good week a couple of weeks back, looking to keep that rolling. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week was a 5-unit max bet. One Anthony Fluffy Hernandez cashing at minus 190 for us. We had the greasy 4-leg parlay cash in for the first time in a minute, so that was awesome. Had a 3-leg prize picks play that cashed for me for 5 units. Up almost 3 units tracked. Up 5 units on prize picks, almost 3 units on that greasy 4-leg parlay. So we're coming off a really good week. And we got a week off, but I did not get a week off, you guys. Let me share my screen with you guys. I want to show you something that's going to be added to the Patreon here. This is going to be the new sheet that I'm going to be working with on the live streams. What this sheet is going to do is it's going to compare everybody's statistics to the industry or to the divisional averages. So, for instance, we see Marvin Vettori here has landed 1,003 out of 2,231 significant strikes. That's 44.96% accuracy. And when you see that yellow, that means that's right around average. But Cannonier has got 50% accuracy. That's above average. So that's going to be highlighted in green. And we've got 4.38 significant strikes landed per minute, 9.75 attempted per minute. 4.38 landed is 0.93 above the middleweight average, which is actually 3.45. And you can compare all of these to the benchmarks for the division to find out if somebody is above or below average in any particular category. This is going to be available on my Patreon for $10 a month. It's going to be $10 instead of $5. And the old stats are going to go back to without the distance striking numbers. So I've spent a lot of time putting together this new database, including the distance striking stats. I've spent a lot of time building all these analytics division by division. And we've got different divisional analytics programmed in different spreadsheets. For instance, the Saruki and Silva fight is going to be at 155 pounds. So the 155-pound benchmarks are in here. And you can see it through all the stats and how they compare to the benchmark. 0.21 takedowns per 15 minutes is 1.33 below the divisional average. But 3.3 takedowns per 15 minutes is 1.76 above the average. So this is going to be something that I hope people are going to be signing up for, because not only does it give you all the necessary statistics, the last 5 fights like we always have, but we're also going to have layoff since the last fight is going to be right over here. And then we've got the amount of submissions and knockouts, not just the percentages here programmed into the sheet. We've got differentials and ratios here for distance striking planned into the sheet. All of the statistics, anything that you could possibly want. And it is going to be the best analytical spreadsheet for you to compare anybody's numbers to the divisional averages to see whether their pace is above or below average in any of the following statistics: offensive and defensive significant striking, offensive and defensive distance striking, offensive and defensive clinch and ground striking, offensive and defensive grappling, control time stats. We still have the strength of schedule. We still have the last 5 fights. We still got the tail of the tape, the pro and UFC experience, and the finish stats, and the decision stats for all the fighters. So $10 a month, the new addition to the Patreon. Look for this new tier on my Patreon next week, and we're going to kick it off with UFC 288 stats coming to you in full color, comparing to the divisional benchmarks. Do I have my Bet MMA tips account up here? No, I don't. But let's just quickly go over the last week's results here. We were up. It shows 2.63, but it's actually 2.93 because these bets are going to be voided here because they were voided by Bet Online Sportsbook. But yeah, 5 units on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez got us 2.63 units. 1 unit on the Chase Hooper money line at plus 120 got us 1.2. That put us up 3.83 units on straight fight bets. We lost the over 2.5 rounds in Diego Ferreira versus Johnson. We won the over 2.5 rounds in the Latifi Nascimento fight at plus 110. And then we also lost this parlay here, which was the under 2.5 rounds for Buckley Fialio and the under 2.5 rounds for Garimba versus Sato. Down 1.2 units on the actually only down 0.9 units because these bets didn't happen and will be canceled soon. So up 2.93 units last week. Looking to add to that, we're up 4 out of the last 5 weeks. So we're on a little bit of a heater here. Just want to keep it going, but want to also remind everybody, this is a 13-week stretch of fights that we have coming up here. And this card has got a lot of lower-level fighters on it. So I'm going to be wading into the pool slowly. Get in there about ankle deep this week because there's a lot of fights that I kind of feel like can go either way. We've got a lot of close lines here, you know. This is a close line. Lynn's Grishin. Lacerda Blackshear is a close line. Reed Fry's almost a pick'em. Mays Arlovski's close to a pick'em. Castaneda Gafarov is close to a pick'em. Zaleski dos Santos Nurmagomedov is a pick'em. The main event is a pick'em. So we got a lot of close fights this week, a lot of fights that could go either way. Trust your reads. You know, as my guy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast says, trust your balls and make the bets that you know are solid bets and pass up on the shit that you don't really need to do this week. So, yeah, the new addition to the Patreon, I think, is good. We're coming off a great week where we hit the greasy four-legger, the ass shaving of the week. So we got to keep it going this week. Let's see what's going on with you guys in the chat today. We got my guy Chris Kalanzis first in the room saying, let's go. What's happening, Chris? Good to see you in here hanging out. We got Bob Spikerman saying, what's up, Weezy, my man? It's good to be back, brother. Now let's stack those flapjacks. Let's get it. We got DJ saying, oi, yes, let's keep stacking them high. And thoughts on the Tim Elliott drama narrative going into the fight. Personally, I think he's going to come with that divorce Dern heat. Yeah, that's a possibility. Look, when we're overly considering the narrative issues of a fight, that's usually one of my biggest indicators to suggest that I shouldn't be betting the fight, because I often think the best and most actionable information that we have as MMA bettors is what has already happened in the UFC cage, in the cage, in the pro cage for these fighters. And then we can extrapolate going forward using the tape study and using the statistics that come with the fights that we have the tape study on. So I'm not going to speculate on whether, Elliott is going to look better or worse as a result of this shit that he's going through with his hoe of a wife. But what I am going to do is look at how Altamirano has fought in the past, how Elliott has fought in the past, handicap those statistical differences, and who's going to get the best angle on this fight. But yeah, narrative things are ones that I definitely try to avoid being too prevalent in my capping. Nigel Lee is in the room, just like how Gina Mazzani cheated on Elliott. It all gets started with just the tip, doesn't it always, ladies and gentlemen? If we're going to get a little bit freaky with somebody of the opposite sex, it does always start with just the tip. And we're going to give you just the tip of the stats here for all 13 fights on the UFC Vegas 74 card, because your Uncle Weezy cares about you. And we got Victor De Jesus in the room saying, oi! Yes, what's up, Weezy and chat? Good to see you hanging out in here, Victor. We got my guy, Big Printer MMA, on Twitter here. My guy, Martin Durmov, saying, flap, jacks, I'm hungry. Let's keep it rolling, Martin. Let's go. We got Funky Bit is in the room saying, oi, y'all see Roosevelt starch that boy? No, I didn't. Damn you, Funky Bit. I was going to watch that later on tonight. So damn it. Now I know what happened. But oh well. You can't be snerious. What's up? He's in the room. He is smiling. Funky Bit said, I hit that greasy four-legger for 2 units. Thank you. Okay, I'm glad to hear about that, Funky Bit. I hope everybody tailed me this week because it hit. Daz File saying, hit the like, spread the word. Appreciate you, Daz. We got Martin Dermov saying, new stat templates look great. Appreciate you, man. Can't wait to debut them next week on the Patreon for you guys. Justin J saying, howdy, Uncle Weezy, and hello to the chat. Good tidings from Mount Rushmore, South Dakota. Stand up. Four presidents just carved into this. Well, was Hamilton one of them? I hope not. Either way, I think it's 4 presidents that are carved into the side of Mount Rushmore. What's up, man? Thank you for checking in from South Dakota, Justin J. Best stat man in the game. Bookies beware, says Funky Bit. The Jewish better in the room saying, oi. What's up, Jewish better? Good to see you hanging out here. My boy on a heater. Let's go, man. We got to keep it going this week. And I have no tracked bets yet. But that doesn't mean I don't have any opinions on these fights. And that does not mean that there aren't more track bets coming later on this week. Usually early in the week, my work is basically just centered around getting the content out. And then a lot of times I will follow up with the bets after that. Marcus Williams, my guy, hanging out saying locked in and watching Nubian Bookstore. What's going on, Marcus? Good to see you hanging out in here. Let us know if you got any big bets on this one. I think I saw that you were looking at Amir Albazi this week. And Marcus, let me tell you something about Marcus Williams. When he's confident about a bet, he puts his fucking money where his mouth is. So he's a good guy to follow there. Nubian Bookstore. Check him out on Twitter. My guy, Marcus Williams. Thanks for hanging out, my man. Green Bat in the room saying, Weezy, Bad Boy Bill from Chicago. Know him? Fan of his? I saw him DJ back in the day, all day, every day. House, B96, Bad Boy Bill, Tim Spin and Schomer, Brian Middleton. Oh, God. I mean, these are the Chicago house guys. These are the guys that would play about 45 seconds of a track and then be right into that next track. You know, a half an hour set would probably have about 25 tracks in it. And definitely not the way I used to DJ. I'm more of a deep house DJ. I'll let the whole record play for the most part before I start mixing in that next one. But Bad Boy Bill is definitely a Chicago house legend. For those of you who don't know, my guy Green Bat is definitely a house music fan. And I never did get to see Bad Boy Bill DJ, but I have seen some of the absolute greats of house music DJ right here in the city of Chicago. Mark Farina, fellow Maine South graduate, just like your Uncle Weezy. Daryl Woodson, Miles Maida, Hector Lopez, Mike Serafini. Oh, my God. And the names just go on and on and on. Chicago, John Curley over at Shelter Nightclub. Oh, my God. Who else? Oh, my God. So many good names in the Chicago house music scene. My guy, Mike Steele, Mike Serafini, owner of Gramophone Records, James Curd, just a classic house music producer. So many great names here, man. So appreciate you always checking in with the house music takes, my man Green Bat. We got Jester saying, I appreciate you, Weezy. Appreciate you for hanging out here, Jester. Lou Bet you saying, Weezy, we're only 53 days away from the long-awaited and much heralded debut of Johnny the Sluggernaut Parsons. Your thoughts, sir. Lie if you have to. No, I have no problem being honest about what I think of Johnny Parsons. He got handed a contract for losing a fight on DWCS to a guy who's not particularly great in Solomon. Oh, man, Solomon, what the fuck was his name? Either way, not a fan of Parsons. Got injured so badly that he had to pull out of a fight against Michael Gilmore, which is literally the easiest fight that you'll get in almost any division in the UFC, not named Mike Jackson at 170. So, yeah, man, I think Parsons is god-awful. I think he's probably the worst fighter in the UFC, and I will be betting against him no matter what the line is. When he makes that long-awaited debut, I will be making my long-awaited opportunity to short that horseshit fighter with the even worse haircut. Shout out to my guy, Lou Betcha, one of the best in the business, fucking inventor of the yam bag shot. We got Ray in the room saying, Oy, que onda, pinche güero, pinche gringo grenudo, but güero grenudo also very good. Let's go, Unc Ray. What's up to you? Much love, big ups. Thanks for hanging out with us here today. We got Nigel Lee saying, FYI, Reed versus Frey fight goes to disappointment minus 500. And he is putting, ladies and gentlemen, the whole bankroll, all 100 units on. And guess who's going to be cashing in for fucking 20 units? My guy Nigel Lee, because that fight is definitely going to fucking go to disappointment. And my guy Lou saying, don't do it. Don't you dare do it, Weezy. Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to cash on it, baby. But I guess we'll have to see who he's fighting. We're going to have to make sure that this person does indeed have a pulse, because you're going to have a pulse in order to beat one Johnny Parsons. Backstab of 47 saying, love from Pilsen, Unc. I graduated from undergrad U of I, Illini, this past week, and my gift to myself is Albazi's money line for 5 units. Dude, University of Illinois, an excellent school, probably the second best school in Illinois to Northern Illinois University. Your Uncle Weezy's alma mater here, but dude, congratulations on graduating from that fantastic school, U of I. And I wish you luck on that Albazi money line, because he just got a lot cheaper. He was definitely a lot more expensive earlier in the week and last week, but the Kai Kara France love is coming in full blast. And as a result of that, the price is getting cheaper and cheaper. So good luck to you, Backstabber, and congratulations on graduating from U of I. We got Lou Betcha saying fighting Danny Roberts. Yeah, I think Roberts fucking smokes him, to be honest with you. But it's not like Danny Roberts is a big world beater. And ring a ding ding. My guy Bob Spikerman's all the way from the Netherlands sending €2 saying much respect. The Patreon is absolute fire, man. I truly appreciate that. And, if you guys want to support my work, please consider joining the Patreon. It's the best way to make sure that I get financially supported for the hard work that I put out here for you guys for free on YouTube with all these stats that you get to see every week. So thank you, Bob, for the donation. It helps out a ton here, and I appreciate all of you guys who are watching, who watch the shows, who hit that thumbs up button, who hit that subscribe button, who join the Patreon. Support me any way you possibly can. It means so much to me, and I'd like to just send a special shout out to everybody that is on the Patreon out there supporting my work. I promise you there are way more big things to come here in the future as I'm working very hard on this thing. Every free minute I'm getting away from capping fights, and that included all of last week, putting together something like 500 programming cells that I had to do to put together this most recent spreadsheet. But this will be getting put on the Patreon tonight for 2 weeks from now, and we'll put out the UFC 289 stats in this fashion as well, and add that new $10 tier to the Patreon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we're going to start with the first fight of the night here, where I have the stats up. It's going to be Philipe Lins going up against Maxim Grishin. And we got You Can't Be Serious saying shout out to the greatest ever as well, Mandy Bone. Absolutely right. You Can't Be Serious. The greatest bullshitter, the greatest faker, the greatest actor, the greatest stank fighter in any division in the entire UFC. The greatest, one Mandy Monster Bone. And fellas, let's get 100 likes from everyone watching. Appreciate you, Nigel Lee. That would be awesome to get that. And we got my guy I got my guy Addicted to Combat, Patrick, saying, hope you had a good holiday weekend, brother. Yeah, I didn't do shit other than program this week, but this stats package that we got coming on the Patreon is going to be worth the work. And I hope that it makes all of us even better cappers when it comes to figuring out how to figure out if somebody's above or below average in their division in any particular stat. So let's get it, you guys. Let's start with this first fight of the night, which is Philipe Lins plus 108, Maxim Grishin minus 128, a small favorite here. And the fight doesn't go to decision. The bookies have no idea whether this is going to decision or not, and neither does your Uncle Weezy, because they got it at minus 110 here. All right, so let's first start talking about Philipe Lins' advantages in this spot. Philipe is 1 year younger than Maxim Grishin. He's been the better finisher overall. He's got an 81.25% career finish rate, while for Maxim, it's 68.75. Felipe's got good power on the feet, but so does his opponent in this case. Felipe's been the more active grappler, getting 1.79 takedowns per 15 minutes at the UFC level and winning about 75% of the control time positions in his fight, as we can see right here. He's fought and beaten the more experienced level of competition at the UFC level. As we see, both of these guys, UFC opponents, have a 1.22 to 1 win-to-loss ratio. But with Linz, his average opponent has 20 UFC fights, while for Grishin, it's 10 UFC fights. So, Linz is fighting just the more experienced brand of competition. Now, for Maxim Grishin, he's got the overall experience advantage here. As you can see, he's got 43 professional fights to only 21 for Philipe Lins. He's got 22 more fights than Lins, 225 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's been the way busier fighter as well, as he's averaging about 3 fights per year, Maxim Grishin, over a 15-year UFC or pro career, while Lins is fighting just a shade over once a year in his 17-year pro career. So actually, Lins has been doing this almost 3 years longer than Grishin, but it's Grishin who's got 43 pro fights, and Lins only has 21. So I do like to look at activity, and this is one of the biggest differences between these two guys, is how much more active Maxim Grishin has been in his pro career. Maxim, he's flashed a bit more power at the UFC level, as he's landing a knockdown on 1.27% of the distance strikes that he's landing, while for Philipe Lins, it's 0.92%. And Maxim's also shown the better minute winning potential at distance striking range, as he has a positive 1.93 distance striking differential, with the superior accuracy at 53% compared to 44% for Lins. And the distance defense is much better for Maxim Grishin, 63% compared to 47.5% for Philipe Lins. So that distance defensive Lins should be able to be exploited by Grishin in this spot. So in summary for this fight, I kind of see this as being a close kickboxing match that's spent at range. Neither guy's the most committed wrestler or grappler. Both tend to prefer to stand, and both are fairly low volume. You look at 9.47 distance strike attempts per minute for Lins and only 8.96 for Grishin. So both of these guys, while being fairly accurate at distance, just aren't throwing a lot of volume. Lins does seem to throw with more power and purpose, but the distance striking numbers actually show Grishin to be the better minute winner at range. I mean, this is a really hard fight to read, but Maxim Grishin has been a lot more active, and he's a lot more defensively responsible on the feet, and he's shown a lot better abilities to just be able to win the minutes by outlanding his opponents by about 2 significant strikes per minute spent at distance, and being just 15% more defensively responsible, I think is enough for me to pick Maxim Grishin to win this fight, and I'll pick him to win it by decision here. So let me go and get this fight card up here so that we can make our picks on Tapology, so you guys can follow along with all my picks for this card. And we're going to pick Maxim Grishin to win this fight by decision over Philipe Lins. All right. The next fight that we are going to talk about is going to be Damon Blackshear going up against Luan Lacerda. Hang on just a second here. We got Immaculatan in the room saying Grishin should get Lins. I think he's getting a bit of a boost for finishing an OSP who's out there for money only. Yeah, I mean, OSP has looked checked out for a very long time. So, I mean, it was a great win. He went out there. He showed a guy who's very low volume and very reluctant to fight, no respect, got in there, landed a big shot, and just emptied the tank and finished him. And it was a good performance by him. So, but, I just think that he's going to get a lot more resistance from somebody like Maxim Grishin. The Golden Octagon is in the room saying, "Oh, I made it. Let's stack them this week, Weezy in chat. Let's get it, dude. Let's absolutely go for it here." So Blackshear is going to be plus 128 in this spot. Luan Lacerda minus 148, and the fight doesn't go to decision, plus money at plus 125. So Let's first start talking about Damon Blackshear and the advantages that he has in this spot. First of all, really nice measurables advantages here for Damon. He's being 1.5 years younger than Luan Lacerda. He's 3 inches taller, and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage, in addition to being a switch stance fighter, while Luan Lacerda is an orthodox fighter. Damon has the overall and the UFC experience advantages. He's got 4 more professional fights, 110 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 1 more UFC fight and 15 more minutes in the UFC octagon. Blackshear is a durable dude. He's never been finished in 18 pro fights, and like his opponent Lacerda, his submission grappling is his biggest go-to weapon when it comes to finishing fights. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, and his MMA grappling is clearly very good and ready for this level. And also, Damon has been more active as a pro, and as such, he's fought the better brand of competition overall, in my opinion, than Luan Lacerda. But for Lacerda, he's a former training partner of Jose Aldo over at Nova União. Luan is a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who's a very dangerous and opportunistic submission grappler. 10 of his 12 pro wins are by submission. He's got 3 rear naked chokes. He's got 2 guillotines. He's got 2 arm bars. He's got a heel hook. He's got an anaconda, and he's got a triangle. So the guy just is dangerous wherever he is on the mat, whether his back is on the mat or whether he's the one on top, whether he's the one getting to the back. He's got a number of different ways to finish you and does not just rely on one particular submission. And he's got good Muay Thai striking. He's very flat-footed, but he does throw with power. He's got good body and head kicks. He kind of plods forward and pressures, which suits his style well due to his dangerous submission grappling. You look at the record and assume that he probably can't strike, but that's not the case. He was competitive on the feet against a solid veteran and a good boxer in Cody Stamann. He just kind of got outpaced a little bit in that fight, outlanded a little bit in that fight, but he didn't look out of his depth. I mean, it wasn't like Cody was styling on him. So it looks like Luan's striking is, well, it might be a little bit below average for the UFC level. It's going to be serviceable. And somebody like Damon Blackshear doesn't have like this elite striking that's going to make Luan Lacerda look out of his depth on the feet. As a matter of fact, I think while this fight is standing, it's going to be very close. So in summary, the theme of this card really is close fights, and this one is no exception. I like Damon's activity and experience. I like that nice measurable advantage that he has, and the fact that he's a BJJ brown belt with 8 career wins by submission, that he shouldn't be too out of his depth on the mat against a guy like Lacerda, who is a high-level BJJ black belt. These guys are very well matched everywhere the fight goes. I'm going to lean with the youth, the experience, the measurables, and the explosive athletic ability of Blackshear here, but just barely. I'm going to pick Damon Blackshear to win this one by a close split decision here. So let's get the Tapology up on the screen. Luan Lacerda versus Damon Blackshear, and I'm going to pick Blackshear to win this one by decision. Very close fight. I have very little confidence in that pick. A lot of these fights this week, you guys, I kind of wiki capped them like I always do. I'll look at those stats. I'll kind of look at their previous performances before I watch any tape. And then I'll decide how much tape I need to watch. Do I have an interest in betting this fight? Am I seeing something in the numbers and just my pre-tape lean that's leaning me one way or another? A lot of times when I don't see that, I decide I'm going to go deep and I'm going to watch as much tape on both guys, hoping that I'll see a path to victory kind of like stick out for one of the two guys. I'm really not seeing it here. I think Luan Lacerda is going to be a tick better on the ground. I think Damon Blackshear is maybe going to be a tick better on the feet. And I think that, Blackshear being a little bit younger, a little more experienced, a little more well-traveled, could potentially have him come out winning this fight. But it's going to be a close one, you guys. And I'm just not that confident on this one. So, yeah, that's enough for that fight. Let's go to the next one, which is one that, oh, God. I mean, it's Elise Reed versus Jinh Frey. Elise Reed is a favorite at this point, but she did open up an underdog here. She's minus 120. Jinh Yu Frey plus 100. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at plus 215 for this one. So I didn't even write up this fight. I barely taped it at all. This is very low level. I consider it to be a kind of a coin flip here. This is a striker versus grappler matchup, even though Jinh Yu Frey isn't really known to be a grappler. Elise has got solid striking, a good straight right hand, a taekwondo background. She can win minutes on the feet. She's got a little bit of power in that right hand, and she's definitely at her most comfortable when she's fighting somebody that's not going to test her takedown defense and her submission defense. So if she's allowed to strike, this is probably going to be a good spot for Elise Reed. But that's not guaranteed. Like, we think of Jinh Yu Frey being very low volume, and she is. She only throws 9.45 distance strike attempts per minute, but Reed just barely outpaces her at 9.73, and we've seen her at distance 25 minutes in the UFC. We've seen Jinh Yu Frey at distance about twice as long as that, about 50 minutes. So even though we see Elise Reed being the slightly better minute winner according to the numbers at distance striking range, she's more accurate than Jinh Yu Frey. She's right there defensively with her. She's got a positive distance strike differential while it's negative for Jinh Yu Frey. And we've seen even Elise Reed land a knockdown while we've never seen Jinh Yu Frey land a knockdown before. But what Jinh Yu Frey does really well is be efficient in the grappling exchanges. Now, we see Jinh Yu Frey has as many takedowns as she's yielded, right? She's gotten 3 and she's yielded 3. But she's only attempted 9 takedowns while her opponents have attempted 27. So we have seen Jinh Yu Frey show 89% takedown defense. And despite the fact that her opponents have attempted 3 times as many takedowns as Jinh Yu Frey has, she's actually winning 53% of the control time positions and out-controlling her opponents. So as easy as it might be to say, oh, if this is just a 15-minute striking match, Elise Reed should easily win, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Jinh Yu Frey will be fine on the feet. I think it'll be very close while it's on the feet. But where I am seeing a little bit of a gap, everybody, is the fact that Jinh Yu Frey can wrestle a little bit. She is very efficient with her grappling exchanges, and we've seen her go out there and get some takedowns in fights that she's won. And this is certainly going to be another opportunity for her to do that. So Jinh is more experienced. She's been a pro for 7 years longer, about 150 more minutes in the cage, a little more UFC experience. While Elise Reed is fighting a better brand of competition at the UFC level, we've seen Jinh Yu Frey be in a lot of close fights here. Very close fight against DePaula, very close fight against Yoder, very close fight against Demopoulos. She lost by unanimous decision to Loma Lubunmi, which, actually she did better against Loma than Elise Reed did, getting subbed late in that fight. So because I don't see Jinh Yu Frey being that out of her depth on the feet here, and I see her as being more likely to win minutes in the grappling, I think the plus 100 on Jinh Yu Frey is probably the way that I would go on this one. But also the prop template is seeing this fight as an interesting under bet, everybody. The fight doesn't go to decision is actually a trifecta bet here. 31.75% implied probability is what a plus 215 is. And we see that 32% of women's 115-pound fights that are scheduled for 3 rounds do finish inside the distance. So it's just a little bit more than what we're paying there. And 5 of 11 fights at the UFC level for Jinh Yu Frey and Elise Reed combined have finished inside the distance. That's 45% of an 11-fight sample size. And we're only paying 31.75% for the fight doesn't go at plus 215. So I think that's a fairly priced line here. And I could see potentially Jinh Yu Frey getting a submission on the ground. I could see Elise Reed maybe getting a knockout on the feet. So it would be something I would play very small. But I think it is analytics-wise a very cheap bet that's plus money, that's high reward, low risk here. So it's something to look at. I know that we're counting on Elise Reed or Jinh Yu Frey to get a finish, which can be absolutely terrifying. But guess what? We've seen that happen 45% of their 11 combined fights. So that could be a cheeky, big plus money number way to make some money on this fight. But we're going to pick Jinh Frey to win this fight by decision, you guys. Okay. The next fight that we are going to talk about here. Is it Santos Munoz, or am I supposed to talk about? No. It's going to be Mullarkey. Oh, wait, I just messed that up. All right, so this is going to go somewhere over here. Mullarkey versus Naimov is going to be the next fight. Wow, it's like I lost Santos Munoz on my sheet. Sorry, bear with me here, folks. I'm just having a little bit of... There it is. Okay. All right, so the next fight, Jamie Mullarkey, minus 400, going up against the short notice replacement out of Tajikistan, Muhammad Naimov, who's plus 330. We don't have a fight, doesn't go to decision line yet for this fight. Let me get this one up on the screen for you guys. There we go. Okay. So let's first start talking about Jamie Mullarkey and the advantages that he has in this spot. First and foremost, Naimov is taking this fight on 5 days' notice. He just signed the contract yesterday. So he's got less than 72 hours to make weight, and this has to be a step down in competition for Jamie, because he's went from the biggest underdog on the card when he was supposed to fight Garam Kutagaladze to now the biggest favorite on the card. So the short notice for Naimov is a huge advantage for Mullarkey here. Jamie's the natural lightweight. He's going to have a 3-inch height and a 4-inch reach advantage over Naimov, and he's the same age as Naimov. So Mullarkey's a natural 55er, while Naimov is not only taking this fight on short notice, but he's taking it up a weight class as well. Mullarkey's got the overall and the UFC experience advantages here. He's got 11 more professional fights in comparison to Naimov, 75 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 5 more years as a pro fighter. Jamie also has 7 more UFC level fights and 75 more minutes in the octagon, as Naimov will be making his UFC debut on less than a week's notice, up a weight class on Saturday. Jamie's been a willing wrestler in the UFC, and that particular plan of action could serve him really well here against a short notice opponent up a weight class who we've seen gas later in fights, especially the ones where he was forced to grapple early. Naimov was taken down in all 3 rounds in his Dana White Contender Series fight against Colin Anglin. He gave up 4.5 minutes of control time, and his output slowed significantly later on in the fight. Mullarkey has got 13 takedowns in 7 UFC fights. He's averaging 2.62 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's winning 78% of the control time positions that he's been in so far in the UFC. And he's out-controlling his opponents about 24% to 7%. So it's about a 3.55 to 1 ratio. Jamie might be smart to wrestle early against Muhammad. Fill his arms up with blood, wear on him, see if his conditioning is up to par against a bigger opponent on short notice. But if he just stands in front of Naimov, that could definitely be a problem. And I don't think it would be a good game plan here. And Jamie has definitely fought, beaten, and lost to the better brand of competition in his career. He's got 7 UFC fights, and Naimov has 0. So, in summary, both of these guys are young, well-rounded fighters. Mullarkey is certainly bigger, longer, and more experienced, and he's fought the better brand of competition over his career. Add to that Naimov has taken this fight on less than 5 days' notice up a weight class, and you see how much Muhammad is giving up in this matchup. That being said, this fight's going to come down to striking, clinch game, and grappling. And I honestly don't see a big skill gap between these two fighters. I see a size gap. I see a length gap. I see an experience gap. And I definitely see Jamie Mullarkey being the more willing wrestler and the more likely guy to win minutes in the wrestling exchanges. But Naimov is a very dangerous striker. Especially early in fights, but he does tend to slow down later in fights, and on short notice against a grinder like Mullarkey, that's not a good thing. I have to favor Jamie here, And I'm going to pick Jamie Mullarkey to win this fight by decision, but I wouldn't lay minus 500 on him, though. That's for sure, because I don't see a big enough striking or grappling gap in this matchup to justify that kind of juice. This guy Naimov's no joke, you guys. He's got really good stand-up, really heavy low leg kicks. He throws with power on the feet. He can be taken down. He can be held down, but we also see some fights where he's getting reversals, where he's getting on top, where he's getting takedowns of his own. And when he gets on top, he's got the ability to be able to stall out and win some minutes there, land some ground and pound as well. So I do kind of think that Mullarkey, being bigger on a full training camp here is going to win this fight because of all the things that are kind of standing in the way of Naimov winning this fight. The fact that he's up a weight class, the fact that it's short notice, the fact that he just found out he's going to be fighting Jamie Mullarkey yesterday. So he hasn't really had time to, put a camp together, put a game plan together. Right now, he's just got to concentrate on making weight, even though it's up a weight class on short notice. So, yeah, no way am I laying this kind of juice on Mullarkey. And frankly, at plus 400 on DraftKings, I might even take a small shot on Naimov because, like I said, Mullarkey should win this fight, but at plus 400, you're talking about a 20% implied probability for Naimov. And I don't think that the skill gap is even close to being that big to justify that kind of price. So the pick, though, and this is the prudent pick, is going to be Jamie Mullarkey to win this one by decision. But like I said, I think that if you're betting this fight, I'd rather have money on that Naimov side. Low risk, high upside pick that, like I said, is not going to be at a massive skill gap because it's not like Mullarkey's incredibly skilled anywhere. Okay, so that is the pick for that fight. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Let's see. Nigel Lee saying this fight is terrible. I will definitely make fun of anyone that loses money on this fight next week. Yeah, it's that kind of fight. I know you're not talking about Mullarkey, Naimov. You're talking about Reed Frey. At Nigel Lee, can't count me in. 4 units on Reed. Uh-oh. 4 units on Reed for Daz Files, man. He's putting his balls in the wheelbarrow and taking them to the bank. Let's see if it works out. AJ Worse in the room saying, Zaleski dos Santos to shave the ass of the fraudulent Abu Nurmagomedov. That's one of the best fights on the card. I think those guys are really well matched. And Daz Files, no, says Nigel Lee. After coming off same on Demopolis's. Come on, Reed. Yeah. Nigel Lee saying, you get a pass. I can never mock an OG, but this ain't the fight, brother. Mullarkey seems like the mush of the week. Could be, man. Mullarkey going to shave his ass. Definitely possible. We got Mullarkey, the Huso from the coast. Wasn't like he weird-ass headspace last time. Yeah, dude, that performance. I mean, I'm not mad at Mullarkey, even though I didn't cash that bet. I had the under 2.5 in the Mullarkey Prado fight, but like Mullarkey came out and fought at a snail's pace because Prado did absolutely nothing. Prado didn't even show up to fight. So Mullarkey didn't have to take any big chances to win there. He just coasted. He made it look very easy, but that's because that was not where I'm like, oh, wow, look at Jamie Mullarkey. That was a kind of performance you go, wow. Talk about shitting your pants. Francisco Prado, what a dog shit performance that was by him. Coming in, getting the biggest shot in your fighting life, and you come out there and do nothing for 15 minutes. I mean, that was not quite William Knight territory against Pragnio, but man, fucking Prado did nothing in that fight. So yeah, I'm not impressed with Mullarkey. No fucking way I would lay minus 500 on that dude. There is not a chance that would ever happen. But yeah, let's move on to this next fight here. And what do I got here? It is going to be John Castaneda at minus 126. Sexy Mexi going up against Muin Gafarov. Tajikistan, stand up. 2 short notice replacements from the proud country of Tajikistan. And let me tell you guys something. If Naimov pulls off this win, and if Gafarov pulls off this win, They are going to be dancing in the streets of Dushanbe, Tajikistan. I can assure you of that, ladies and gentlemen. Tajikistan, one of the biggest MMA fan countries that there is, and they really support their fighters. So you can count on during UFC Vegas 74, there's going to be like a giant outdoor TV somewhere in Dushanbe, and there's probably going to be about 10,000 Tajikistani people rooting on their fighters here. And I think that both of these guys are going to have good fights on Saturday. So, yeah, Castaneda is the favorite here, but a lot of money coming in on Muin Gafarov here as he has gotten all the way from like plus 130 to plus 106 here. So let me get this stats up here and let's get to my notes. And let's first start talking about John Castaneda's advantages after I get a sip from this lovely Paloma here. That's a good Paloma, ladies and gentlemen. That is your Uncle Weezy's secret recipe for a grapefruit agua fresca that's homemade. We got a splash of lime in there and some good reposado tequila, an absolutely lovely way to sip on a lovely beverage while we do our hard work here and talk about these fights. So, Castaneda versus Gafarov. Let's first start talking about John Sexy Mexi Castaneda. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight, and he's the switch stance fighter going up against a southpaw in Gafarov. John has the overall and the UFC experience advantages with 3 more pro fights and over 100 more minutes in the pro cage. He also has 4 more fights at the UFC level and over 40 more minutes in the octagon, as Gafarov will be making his short notice UFC debut on Saturday. Castaneda has nice stand-up. He's got 3 UFC knockdowns in only 4 fights, and he's got 8 career wins by knockout. His UFC striking metrics are just okay, but he'll be in solid shape when this fight is on the feet, as he has been in there with some very dangerous strikers already, and he's held up very well. John has shown some really nice head kicks, and when he's the one who's pressuring, he's definitely a problem, as we saw in the Miles Johns fight. But Castaneda also can be the type of fighter that will allow his opponent to pressure him, and he's not necessarily uncomfortable backing up, moving around laterally, trying to suck his opponents in and walk them into a big shot. But when John is the one that's actually pressuring, and that's when I really think he's doing his best work. The strength of schedule, especially recently, has been better for Castaneda. Both guys have fought really solid levels of regional scene competition before getting into the UFC, but Castaneda having 4 UFC fights indicates that he's fought the better level of competition recently. Plus, Gafarov has taken this fight on about 1 week's notice, so we will need to watch the scales for this fight. It's going to be very important and see how both of these guys look. Castaneda's had problems making weight in the past, and Gafarov only has a week to get this weight cut and get down to 136. Now, Muin Gafarov, the advantages that he has in this spot is, number one, he's a finisher. 94.5% finish rate, you guys, against good competition. He's got 10 wins by knockout. He's got 7 wins by submission. People regard Muin as a wrestler, but he's got serious power in his overhand right, and he's finished more than once with spinning back kicks to the body. So he's definitely dangerous and opportunistic wherever the fight goes. And Muin also has that combat sambo background, and he's done an excellent job of mixing in the wrestling when he fights. We saw him be relentless with the wrestling against Chandan Helliger when he got 5 takedowns on 12 attempts and over 7.5 minutes of control time in that fight. He's also shown the ability to win minutes with his grappling outside of the UFC, and he's done well grappling with high-level submission artists. Muin's ground game is solid, and he's got the chops to get the fight to the ground. In summary, this is a great fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think these guys are really well matched, but I really want to see how each of these guys looks at the weigh-ins before I commit to a pick here, because Gafarov taking this fight on 1 week's notice is a big deal. Castaneda has a wrestling background, and if he can stop Muin's takedowns, I do like him to win this fight, but I think Muin's a really good prospect with a functional set of MMA skills and a style that highlights his strengths. If Muin looks good on the scale and he's ready to go, I'm going to pick him to win this fight. if he's ready to go and has the conditioning to push a grappling heavy pace, I think he wins the minutes and gets a decision win here. However, if he's not ready and the 1 week weight cut and short notice are too much for him, then I think Castaneda is probably going to win a decision. Both guys are durable. I'm going to be interested to see where the totals open up on this one. Let's see if we finally got a total in this fight. Bet Online just put the Naimov Mullarkey line out at minus 400 plus 330, but we still don't have a total on this fight. But Castaneda is still minus 126 and Gafarov still plus 106. And I'm going to pick, and then this is under the assumption that Muin Gafarov makes weight and looks good. I'm going to take Muin Gafarov to win this fight by decision, but I do reserve the right to change that pick if I don't like how Gafarov looks on the scales here. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Brandon Ortega is in the room saying, Uncle Weezy. What's up, Brandon? Appreciate you hanging out here on the live stream. So the next fight that we're going to talk about, I believe, is the Arlovski. Yes, Arlovski versus Dante Almaze. Andrei Arlovski plus 119. Dante Almaze minus 139. Fight doesn't go to decision. Plus 115. Oh, God. All right. I didn't watch any tape on this one. I couldn't be lower on both of these guys. I have a hard time picturing either one of these guys getting another win ever in the UFC. But there's a couple of things that we want to be aware of here, right? Number one, Dante Almaze is 13 years younger than this guy. So while the one thing that I'm very sure about is that Andrei Arlovski no longer gives a shit, and Dante Almaze never looked like he gave a shit to begin with, right? I mean, like Dante Almaze, you know, like I said, he looks like he's sipping on cough syrup before he goes in there. He looks like he's in slow motion, super low volume. I mean, the numbers don't show it, but it just looks like he doesn't do dick. And, you know, his performances in the UFC have just been really subpar. Outside of that Parisian fight, I mean, I haven't seen him do anything that I would remotely consider to be good. Even losing to a guy like Hamdi Abdelwahab, getting absolutely smoked by Augusto Sakai, who was on a 4-fight losing streak. But Mays is 13 years younger, 3 inches taller, and he's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He doesn't have 513 minutes of cage time like Andrei Arlovski does. And we have seen Mays get 7 of his 11 takedowns in his 6 fights. He does have 22% control time for, and both times that we've seen Andrei Arlovski get taken down, he's been finished like less than 10 seconds later. The guy's ground game at this point in his career is literally non-existent. If you thought Ben the Bane Davis had a rough day on Saturday against a black belt who went for a fucking leg lock on a white belt, if you thought Ben had a rough time, dude, I think Ben looked 10 times better on the ground against that dude than Andrei Arlovski has looked on the ground the last 2 times his fights have went there. He looked absolutely pathetic against De Lima and Aspinall as soon as his ass hit the mat. So I kind of feel like Arlovski, if he can keep this fight standing, he could potentially win a decision here. He probably does win the decision because my understanding of Arlovski's contract is that he gets a flat fee to fight. So if the fight goes to decision, the UFC doesn't have to pay a win bonus to Arlovski, and they do have to pay a win bonus to Dante Almaze. So usually what happens in that situation is the UFC will go up to 2 out of the 3 judges with a sack of cash and say, hey, we'll give you guys the equivalent of what would be half of Dante Almaze's win bonus that we won't be paying him if you could fix the fight for Arlovski. So I kind of feel like maybe a finish-only prop on Dante Almaze might be a decent look here, because I don't think Andrei Arlovski is finishing even a bad fighter like Dante Almaze at this point in his career. Probably less than a 5% chance of that happening. But, you know, Maze is bigger. He's longer. He's younger. I think he's a little more well-rounded. So, I mean, I'm going to pick him to win this fight with literally no confidence. I do like the over 2.5 rounds in this fight, and I am looking to parlay that with something else this week as soon as lines become available on DraftKings, which for some reason they're not available at all, only money lines on Tuesday night on DraftKings. So unfortunately, we're waiting for them to get their shit together and start caring about MMA this week. But until then, I'm going to be looking for something to parlay the over 2.5 rounds in this fight. But I'll pick Don'Tale Mayes to win by decision, but I'm not touching this money line with a 10-foot pole. And I mean, frankly, you know, laying juice on either Don'Tale Mayes or Andrei Arlovski at this point in both of their careers should be a jailable offense. You should never do that as a gambler that actually pretends to care about long-term results. You don't lay juice on Andrei Arlovski, and you don't lay juice on Don'Tale Mayes. These guys are not good. But I'm picking Mayes to win this fight by decision, and I think if he gets into the fight, he could immediately submit or get a ground and pound knockout against Andrei Arlovski, who doesn't look like he's put on a gi or grappled for 15 years. So, yeah, Don'Tale Mayes by decision is the pick. Staying the fuck away from that fight other than maybe an over 2.5 bet that I parlay. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We've got Nigel saying, don't tail Mayes. That Hamdi fiasco was a lifetime fade performance. And then he went out there and looked even worse against Augusto Sakai. But Sakai, admittedly, a much higher level fighter than Hamdi Abdelwahab. Daz Dillinger saying, Don'Tale, 0 fight IQ. Sounds like a safe bet. Well, I'm not betting that he wins this fight. That's for goddamn sure. But yeah, over minus 170 should be good for an over 2.5. But yeah, Don'Tale is absolutely horrible. Yeah, and Hamdi was on the juice. He was definitely on the gas for that fight. Arlovski by split. I like that. I think that's a good look. Usman, I agree. Split decision coming. Yeah. And then we got Nigel Lee saying Arlovski going to get it done early. He's got to head out to catch the blue plate special, and he gets an extra discount with his AARP card. So true. Maybe he will look to end this fight early for the first time in a long time. All right. The next fight that we're going to talk about, Daniel Willie Catch Santos at where is the line on this one? He's a big favorite right now. Minus 220 going up against Johnny Munoz Jr. plus 185. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 215. So we've already broken down this fight, but I'll read you what I wrote last time. Daniel Santos, 28-year-old fighter training out of Shootbox Diego Lima in Brazil. He's got an 11-2 pro record and 13 fights in 131 minutes in the pro cage. 8 of his 11 wins come inside the distance. He's got 2 submissions and 6 knockouts. And Daniel has never been finished in his pro career. He's a pressure fighter first and foremost. He never takes a backward step, and he throws a wide variety of techniques. He's got 2 knockouts by spinning back kick to the body, and he forces a brawl basically from the word go. The distance striking numbers for Santos in the UFC are far from impressive. He's got a negative 3.27 distance striking differential, only 29% accuracy, and 52% defense. He got pieced up at range by Julio Arce, and his striking accuracy in that fight was 21%. Arce did a masterful job of using his jab to maintain distance, and his lateral movement and footwork was beautiful, and that helped him deal with Santos's pressure. He spent about 84% of his UFC cage time at distance striking range, has Santos, which is where he wants to fight. So he's done a solid job of keeping fights where he's most comfortable. Santos is tough as a $2 stake, so I don't think anyone is finishing him by knockout, but his regional scene loss came against a grappler named Murad Kalimov. And Kalimov spammed takedowns and got lots of top control in all 3 rounds. But Daniel was never satisfied being on his back, and he was always working to stand up. And when Kalimov gassed, Santos actually won the 3rd round against him. Munoz is definitely going to try to grapple, so we'll see how Santos' takedown defense holds up against the guy who's going to test it early and often. Now, Johnny Munoz Jr. is a 30-year-old fighter. He's got good size for the bantamweight division at 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. He fights out of Sequence Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Norco, California, and that's a gym his parents founded. and Johnny has trained there since the age of 5. He earned his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt at the age of 20, so it's safe to say this kid is a grappling phenom, and he does his best work when he uses that grappling base. Johnny is 12-2 as a pro, with 9 of those 12 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 7 submissions and 2 knockouts. Johnny's striking is serviceable. One of his 2 knockouts is via ground and pound, so we can't really count on Johnny to win moments on the feet. But he was able to win minutes standing against Ludovic Shalinian, but that doesn't really tell us much. I flat out think if this fight stays on the feet, Johnny's really got no chance. He needs to wrestle and make this a grappling match because he isn't skilled enough on the feet to win minutes against Santos like Arce did. And the clear moment winner while this fight is standing is going to be Willie Catch. Munoz didn't face high level of competition on the regional scene, and his UFC opponents have got a combined record of 8 wins and 10 losses in the UFC. And his 2 wins are over guys with a combined UFC record of 0 wins and 4 losses. So Willie Catch is going to be 2 years younger, and he has over 20 more minutes in the pro cage than Munoz. He has the superior striking, and while he's not the best minute winner on the feet, he's extremely durable, and he refuses to fuck off. So anyone who doesn't deal well with relentless pressure is going to have a bad time against Willie Catch. Daniel definitely has the power advantage, and he's fought and beaten better competition as a professional. Munoz is going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage on the feet. He's got the UFC experience advantage with 2 more fights and almost 15 more minutes in the octagon. Johnny will be more active as a wrestler, and he will be the superior submission grappler in this matchup. I like this fight, though, for Willie Catch. I love the pressure, the durability that he brings. He's got great cardio, and he can finish the fight with his power. Spinning back kick is always in play as well, but he'll need to keep this fight standing. If you're on the Munoz side, you look at the Kalimov fight on the regional scene for Daniel Santos, and notice that Castaneda took down Willie Catch, Castaneda took down Willie Catch 3 times in just under 2 rounds. So Munoz winning minutes and potentially finding a sub is definitely in play if Munoz can time a beautiful entry off of Santos's pressure and get to a dominant position and work for a sub, or find the opportunity to win 2 rounds with his grappling and his top pressure. But that being said, I do like Willie Catch to wear Munoz down with his pressure, and I think he finds a 3rd round knockout in this particular spot. So Santos versus Munoz Jr., I'm picking Daniel Willie Catch Santos to win by 3rd round knockout here, but I think that this line has gotten a little bit wide, everybody. Minus 220 for Daniel Santos is wide. It's really wide to say that he's going to win this fight about 68% of the time. Munoz has a path. We've seen Santos lose minutes in the grappling exchanges in a few different fights on the regional scene and at the UFC level. So Munoz could potentially bring a game plan that gives Santos problems, that doesn't allow him to keep this fight standing 84% of the cage time, that doesn't allow him to be able to walk his opponent down like Michael Myers with a machete, which is basically how this guy Santos fights. So the pressure is a big thing in this fight, and I think it's going to be the reason that he gets the win here. But man, potentially in over 2.5 rounds, which is really fat plus money number right now, could be an interesting way to look at this. Plus 145 is a 40% implied probability. 50% of Munoz and Santos's combined UFC fights have went over 2.5 rounds, and 57% of bantamweight fights go over 2.5 rounds. So there's a couple of discounts here, and these guys aren't going over 2.5 rounds, that much less than what the division does. So if Munoz refuses to strike and brings the same game plan that he did in the Nate Maness fight, we could see this fight go the full 15 minutes and an over 2.5 at plus 145, or a fight goes to decision at plus 175 cash. So I think that could be a cheeky way to play this one, but man, would it be a terrifying bet. Your butthole would be puckered up tight, because when Santos is on the feet and bringing pressure, there's usually not too long before he's going to find a knockout. So great fight. Really looking forward to this one. The pick is Santos by third round knockout, but I think the Munoz Jr. money line at plus 185 is intriguing. And I think the over 2.5 rounds at plus 145, well, it will be a huge sweat. Could be an easy cash if we see Munoz fight the way I think he might. But that's enough for that fight. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Daz Dillinger saying Karine Silva, Daniel Santos, Jared Gordon over 1.5, 2.5 to go to decision. I like all those spots. Assist was the reason Daniel Santos pulled out. When I heard that, I'm all in. There you go. Santos probably breaks Munoz. Yeah, I mean, that's what he does. He breaks dudes. And the pressure is relentless. And there are so few fighters that deal well with pressure. He's already seen one of them in Arce, but I don't know if Munoz is going to do the same. So anyway, let's move on to the next fight here, which is going to be Abubakar Nurmagomedov going up against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos in the battle for who has the longest name in the UFC. With Abubakar Nurmagomedov, we got, I believe, an 18-letter name. With Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, we have a 20-letter name. 20 is two more than 18. So I think we got to pick Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos to win this fight. But you know what? Let's break it down. Let's break it down as if we have some notes on it. Okay. Let me get a sip of the beverage here, you guys. All right. Nurmagomedov advantages here. He is 3 years younger than Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Abu is an excellent minute winner. He's 7-0-1 in his 8 career decisions, and he can win minutes wherever the fight goes. Even though it's been against very low-level UFC competition, Abu has shown excellent minute-winning skills with his distance striking. He stays behind a crispy jab. He throws body and head kicks from the southpaw stance when he shifts to the southpaw stance. And he's got 71.5% distance striking defense. That's very good. 71.7, I'm sorry, percent distance striking defense. He's got a positive 1.93 distance striking differential. And he's got 52% accuracy in his over 17 minutes at distance striking range. And that's excellent as well. In addition to that, Abu wins minutes with his grappling as well. He has only 3 takedowns in 3 UFC fights, but he has 42.8% control time for, while only yielding 3.45% control time to his opponents. He's winning over 92% of the control time positions that he's been in, and that represents almost 50% of his UFC cage time that is spent in those positions. So Abu's ability to eat up minutes with ground control time is a big part of what makes him a very difficult opponent to deal with. Now, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, the advantages that he has in this spot is that he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage while this fight is on the feet. He's got the overall and the UFC experience advantages with 9 more pro fights and almost 100 more minutes in the pro cage and almost 2 more years as a pro. He also has 9 more UFC fights and over 110 more minutes in the octagon. Elizeu also has good distance striking numbers. He's got a positive 1.14 distance striking differential, positive 3.27 distance strike attempt differential, and he's got 2 UFC knockdowns and 3 UFC wins by way of knockout. He's got a capoeira base, which makes him dangerous at range due to the variety of explosive and unique attacks he shows his opponents. Everything Zaleski throws is with bad intentions, so he's very dangerous to stand with, even though he's been susceptible to being dropped, as he's absorbed 5 knockdowns, and he was knocked out by the Leech in China. Elizeu was efficient in the grappling exchanges, and that's going to be important for this fight. He's got 5 UFC takedowns, and he's allowed 19 UFC takedowns. So he's definitely given up a lot more takedowns than he's gotten, but he's still winning 45% of the control time positions that he's been in, and he's only yielding 14% control time to his opponents. So even though he's been easy to take down, allowing 1.96 takedowns per 15 minutes on only 62% takedown defense, He hasn't lost massive stretches giving up control time to his opponents, especially in his recent fights. Elizeu has the better conditioning. Abu does get tired, and he breathes with his mouth wide open in the second half of fights. So I think Zaleski can win the latter rounds of this fight if Abu cannot get takedowns. And Zaleski has fought and beaten and lost to the much better brand of UFC competition, and it's really not even close. So in summary, this is definitely a step up in competition for Abubakar Nurmagomedov. His 3 UFC opponents are Gooden, David Zawada, and Omar Gadziev, Omar Gadziev. So those guys have got a combined UFC record of 2 wins and 9 losses, while Zaleski's got a 9-win and 3-loss UFC record. So this is without question the toughest test that he's faced thus far at this level. But I love Abu's boxing. I love his wrestling. I love his ability to mix both of them and find multiple paths to winning minutes. I'm going to pick Abu Nurmagomedov to win this fight, despite the fact that this is a massive step up for him, because I see multiple paths to victory for this guy. I think the stand-up exchanges are going to be very close. I don't think Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos is going to be much better than Abu on the feet. But the threat of Abu's wrestling will even out the striking exchanges, even though I think it's already close to begin with. The threat of the wrestling is something that Elizeu is going to have to be very aware of. And if he's aware of that and overcompensates defensively for what he thinks might be takedowns, we might see Abu actually getting the better of the striking exchanges. If Abu is successful getting the fight to the ground, I think he can win minutes there. And I believe if he is successful in doing that, Elizeu's win condition will either be a flash knockout or a sub on the ground. I'm picking Abu to win this fight by decision, but I don't think Zaleski dos Santos finish-only prop is a bad look here, as Abu hasn't shown much finishing potential at this level yet. So while I do think the more dangerous guy is Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Abu is just so fucking good at eating up minutes that I think that he's going to have a very limited amount of time in order to be able to find that submission, to find that big knockout shot. So I think that if he doesn't, it's going to be Nurmagomedov finding ways to win minutes in this fight and cruising to a decision victory. So the pick is going to be Abubakar Nurmagomedov to win this fight by decision. All right. Dollar Tree Nurmagomedov says, yes, well, he compared to Khabib, yes, there's no doubt about that. And we've seen Abu really shit the bed a couple of times. It's a big favorite, you guys. The Pavel Kush fight and the David Zawada fight. Both times he was like a minus 300 or lower favorite in those fights, and he shit the bed and got finished in both of them. So Abu has dropped the ball in the past, but when he fights his best fight, he's a fantastic minute winner. All right. The next fight that we're going to talk about here, and we've got 5 more fights to go. So we've gotten to the main card here. It's going to be Karine Killer Silva at minus 225 going up against Ketlen Souza at plus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 135. So let's get the stats up here on the screen. All right, let me get a sip of my beverage here. What do we got? About 35 of you guys hanging out live in here. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This is a low total for people, for live viewers on a Tuesday night, just a tip. So maybe get out there on Twitter and let people know that their Uncle Weezy's live and you're looking to stack cash tickets like flapjacks. You should be turning on this podcast. So let's get some more people in here and let's hit that thumbs up. Let's hit that subscribe and let's talk about joining that Patreon and get some of these awesome statistics going forward with the divisional benchmarks baked into the spreadsheet and color coding to show whether somebody's output is above or below average for the division. So let's get that going. But the next fight that we are going to talk about here is going to be Karine Killer Silva going up against Ketlen Souza. Silva's a big favorite, minus 225. Souza plus 190. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juiced up to minus 135 for a women's fight. So let's first start talking about Karine Silva. Karine's nickname is Killer, and it is apt. She's finished all of her 15 pro wins, 9 knockouts, 6 submissions. When she finishes, she does so in savage fashion. She tore up Simone de Silva's knee with a nasty heel hook. She snapped City Roach's arm in half with a nasty armbar. She dropped Batalio in savage fashion with a big right hand and finished with a Darce choke. Less than 10 seconds left in the first round. Karine goes out there to finish fights, and she's damn good at it. She's listed as 2 inches taller than Ketlen, and she's got a 3-inch reach advantage. So I'm assuming that she's going to be the much bigger fighter, as we saw Souza start her pro career at strawweight, and Silva's a big flyweight. Karina's got big power on the feet. She's got 9 career wins by knockout, and even though she isn't very accurate or defensively responsible on the feet, she makes up for that by being the more dangerous fighter that waits to land that one big shot. She's very dangerous and opportunistic with her submission grappling as well. 6 career wins by submission. We've seen Ketlen get subbed on the regional scene by a 1-3 fighter back in 2018. Karine has submission wins by Darce choke, guillotine choke, armbar, heel hook, and triangle choke in her career. So she's very versatile with her submission attacks. And Karine has 3 more pro fights in over 3 more years as a pro fighter. And she's fought the better brand of competition in her career in comparison to Ketlen Souza. But Ketlen Souza has been a pro for 3 more years and actually has 3 more pro, or even though Silva has been a pro for 3 more years and has 3 more pro fights, it's Ketlen Souza who actually has over 65 more minutes in the pro cage. She's been fairly busy as a pro, fighting 2.5 times per year. Ketlen has a good understanding on how to move laterally when she's striking, making her a very hard target to find. She's 4-0 in her career in decisions, while Silva has only went the distance once, and she lost that fight. So I would assume that it's safe to say that Ketlen may have more of an understanding of how to formulate a game plan that can win minutes without having to rely on landing a big shot or finding a submission here. Ketlen's got 8 wins by KO in her career, so while this fight is on the feet, I think both ladies will have fight-changing power, but I think Silva will be the more accurate and defensively responsible striker, or I'm sorry, that Ketlen Souza will be the more accurate and defensively responsible striker, as Karine Silva has shown a pathetic 20.79% distance striking accuracy over and 43% distance striking defense between her DWCS fight against the very handsome Yan Kihi and her UFC fight against Batalio. So Souza winning minutes and potentially even moments at distance striking range in this fight is certainly possible if Silva doesn't clean up her striking. Now we see here a 19% accuracy. Now it's only 4 minutes of cage time against Pauliana Batalio. And we don't have the Yan Kihi numbers in here because it was a DWCS fight. But, I mean, Silva did land a knockdown. They gave her credit for a takedown instead of a knockdown, but she landed a big shot that wound up putting Batalio on her ass. But outside of that, 19% accuracy and 27% defense. So, I mean, what happens if Karine Silva doesn't find a big shot? What happens if she doesn't lock up a submission here? There's a damn good chance that Ketlen Souza will be the one winning the minutes on the feet. And if Karine doesn't find that big shot, and if her conditioning hasn't improved, then we can't count on her to go into that 3rd round and be able to win minutes, we could see Ketlen Souza get the win here. This is a very interesting matchup. I almost puked when I watched Souza's fights against Carnelosi and Mojera. She looked awful, and I had no clue how she got the UFC call. However, after watching her performance against Suotama and Williams in Invicta, it's evident that she's made big improvements, and I think she can absolutely be live to win this fight if she's smart with her lateral movement and picks apart the very inaccurate Karine Silva from range, being defensively responsible along the way, avoiding the big shot. Karine will be much bigger, more powerful, and more dangerous and opportunistic with her submissions, but if she waits to find the big shot and she doesn't find it, the minutes might be won by Souza, who I'm quite sure will have the better conditioning after seeing her look great in a 5-round title fight versus Christina Williams. I could even see Souza getting a late finish if Silva, who's never won a decision before, slows down later in the fight. No way I'm laying the juice on Karine Silva to win this fight, even though I think she's way more dangerous as a finisher. I'm actually going to pick Ketlen Souza to win this fight by decision in a big upset. Souza's getting better, and Silva is basically dependent. She's got a 100% finish rate, so she's dependent on finding a big shot on the feet or a big submission. And frankly, I don't think that that's going to fly at this level. And I think Souza's the much better minute winner. And I think if she avoids the big shot, I'm going to be taking a little shot on Ketlen Souza to win this fight by decision this week. All right. So let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Their loss is our gain, says Brandon Ortega. Yeah, that's all right, man. Hey, man, everybody doesn't have to be here, man. I think I'll bet Souza. She all right? Yeah, I mean, I think she's a decent fighter. I mean, like, she's made big improvements. Go back and you watch the first two fights on the tape index, compare them to the next two. Big improvements for Souza, and I think she might not be a bad minute winner here. And then ring a ding ding, you guys. Like Daz Dillinger in the house saying Karine Silva is gonna smoke her. Hey man, if you're donating money to the show, you are absolutely okay being on the other side as your Uncle Weezy. Daz, I appreciate the donation, and Karine Silva is the more dangerous fighter here. She will be the one with way more finishing equity, especially early in the fight. She's the more dangerous and opportunistic submission grappler, but she needs to find that moment in order to win this fight. And until she does, I think Ketlen Souza will be winning the minutes, but we'll see how it all shakes out. It's a very interesting fight. Daz saying Souza is shit. Yeah, dude, look, her fights prior to being in Invicta looked absolutely awful. But maybe go back and watch the Suotama and the Williams fights. I think you'll get a little bit better of an idea of what she brings to the table. And Immaculate Time 3 saying, sounds like you're describing a live bet to me. If it doesn't look like Souza not getting finished, yeah, that could be a good plan as well. Maybe a round and a half in, taking a dog shot on Ketlen Souza. But I think she can even win the first round in this fight. I'm worried that Karine Silva's not accurate on the feet and that she's really dependent on landing the big shot. So, yeah. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Tim Elliott against Victor Altamirano. Let's see. The line here is Tim Elliott at -175. Victor El Magnifico Altamirano +150. Fight doesn't go to decision, +195. If I'm a little bit biased, my guy El Magnifico cashed 2 units for me in his fight against Vinicius Salvador. So definitely a fan of El Magnifico, but let's break this fight down like we always do here on Just the Tip and go through both guys' advantages and give you a summary. So, but first, Tim Elliott's advantages. Tim is way more experienced. He's got 17 more pro fights, 185 more minutes in the pro cage, and 8.5 more years as a pro. He also has 12 more UFC level fights and 150 more minutes in the octagon. Tim's striking style is extremely difficult to deal with, especially early in fights. He's spastic. He feints a lot. He's constantly switching stances, and he's pretty much impossible to replicate in training. So you just kind of have to figure him out as the fight goes on. His UFC striking metrics over a large sample size are solid. A positive 0.15 distance striking differential, a positive 1.76 distance strike attempt differential, and an almost 60% distance striking defense are all solid numbers considering Tim has fought the top fighters in this division. Tim's commitment to the wrestling is very impressive. He's got 99 takedown attempts in 15 UFC fights. He's gotten 46 of them for a 46.46% accuracy and an average of 3.77 takedowns per 15 minutes. He hasn't been the most efficient minute winner there, though, as he wins 54.55% of his control time positions, even though he's attempted 50 more takedowns than his opponents have. And he's gotten also 27 more takedowns than his opponents. You see Tim Elliott with 46 takedowns, and he's only allowed 19. He's attempted 99 takedowns, and his opponents have attempted only 49. Yet he barely outcontrols his opponents. So he's got a commitment to the wrestling, but he's not great at keeping the fight there. But in his 9 UFC losses that he's had since the year 2013, he's got 19 of 49 takedowns at 39%, with only 15.6% control time. But in his 6 UFC wins, you guys, he's got 27 of 50 takedowns. That's 54% accuracy. And he's gotten a very impressive 48.5% control time for. So 48.5% control time for in those 6 wins, but only 15% control time for in those 9 losses. So, you know, it's very obvious that Tim Elliott does his best work when the wrestling is working, because he's winning minutes there. And you can see on the advanced stats, if you were to like highlight the wins, De La Rosa, Benoit, Espinosa, and Ulanbekov. And then you look here at the grappling stats. Look at the control time. 52 seconds against Ulanbekov, 799 against Espinosa, 162 against Benoit, 334 against the Bumblebee De La Rosa, 483 against the drunken Louis Smolka, 548 against Louis Gaudino. But in these losses, 66, 76, 75, 218, 0, 4, 122, 241, 148. He really does need that control time. So that's going to be, I think, a really the crux of this fight is whether Altamirano is stopping the takedowns, or whether Altamirano can even get takedowns of his own. Also, in addition to that, the strength of schedule for Tim Elliott is way, way, way better than Victor's. According to my metric, Tim, since 2013, has a positive 1.64 ratio with 8.8 total fights for, while Vic, it's 0.17 ratio. His opponents have a combined UFC record of 1 win and 6 losses. So, you know, the competition these two have faced isn't even close. Tim's UFC wins outside of Ulanbekov, though, aren't that impressive. But this is the murderer's row of dudes he's lost to since 2013, Tim Elliott. Ali Bogatinov, Joe Benavidez, Zach Funsize Makovsky, Mighty Mouse Johnson, Ben 10 Win, Davison Figueiredo, Oscar Askarov, Brandon Royval, and Mateus Nicolau. So it would be surprising if a name like Victor Altamirano would be amongst those names of being the guys who have beaten Tim Elliott. Now, Victor Altamirano has some nice measurables advantages in this spot. He's 4 years younger than Tim. That's good. He's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 4-inch reach advantage. So those are all significant. He's shown solid distance striking metrics over a small sample size versus subpar competition. He's got a positive 0.93 distance striking differential, 53.3% distance accuracy, and he's landed as many UFC knockdowns since 2013 as Elliott in a much smaller sample size. Again, in a small sample size, Vic has really nice grappling metrics as well. He's gotten 4 takedowns and yielded 3. However, he's won over 82% of the control time positions he's been in and shown an 80% takedown defense and allowed only 5.25% control time against, even though his opponents have attempted 15 takedowns against him in 3 fights. So Victor, prior to being in the UFC, was a guy who would get taken down easily and lose a ton of minutes on his back. So we could certainly see that Victor Altamirano show up again. But he seems to have made some adjustments. He seems to play a lot less jiu-jitsu off his back and work to get back up when he does get taken down now. And if he takes that approach against Elliott and really makes this a scrambling match, a really high-paced fight, I know we're going to see Tim Elliott fade down the stretch, because that's what he always does. He wastes so much energy with all that pointless movement on offense. So I think that this is a very interesting matchup. So this is a cagey veteran in Tim Elliott against a hungry up-and-comer in El Magnifico. Elliott has so many advantages on paper here. He's way more experienced. He's fought the way better brand of competition over his career. He's averaging 3.77 takedowns per 15 minutes with over 30% control time. So he can win minutes with his wrestling. But his striking is unorthodox and difficult to prepare for. I think Tim wins the first round, then slows down a bit. So I'm thinking maybe a second round entry on the Victor Altamirano money line could be a cheeky way to play this fight and get the best possible price on Altamirano to win by his best win condition, which is to outpace Tim Elliott and outwork him over the last 2 rounds. The pick is going to be Tim Elliott by decision, but I wouldn't lay the juice on a 36-year-old flyweight who has had some recent personal problems that could affect his performance. I think that this is going to be a close, sweaty fight. So I'm not laying the juice on Tim Elliott here, but I will pick him to win this fight by decision. Poor fucking guy, man. Gina Mazzani. My God, fucking your best man in Kevin Kroom. Poor Tim Elliott. You know, it'd be nice to see him go out here and get a win, but I'm a fan of El Magnifico. He's a good fighter, and I'm wishing the best for him as well. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Brandon saying, if you look, she's ranked 59th in the world. And with women's MMA, I don't hate taking the dog. I agree with you. Altamirano all day, says Ortega. Elliott's mind hasn't been focused on fighting. That could be the case. Altamirano is very awkward, and that works well for him. But Tim's even more awkward. Yes, correct. Olivia, he's been dealing with Mazzani cheating and doing interviews. I have Altamirano round 2. All right. No. If Victor doesn't smoke him, he will outpace him, in my opinion. Okay. Elliott won't win the way I see it, says Brandon. Daz saying Tim got rid of that hoe. He's going all in. Let's hope so. Victor at plus 150 was okay. Might bet again if it gets better. Yeah, I like the plus money on Vic here. Victor's awkward style, off-tempo strikes, constant clinching is not going to work here, in my opinion. I understand what you're saying, but I don't see Tim being 100% there. Yeah. And Vic coming in 5 years younger is important. I see round 1 being Elliott and the rest Victor. I agree with round 1 being Elliott for sure. Bro, he got rid of that hole. Imagine how much clearer his thinking is. Best thing to happen to him. Let's hope it winds up that way. Not even worth it, poor guy, SMH. Thoughts on Gina Mazzani morals? Yeah, they're not good, but, you know, I'm sure that Kevin Kroom is somewhat to blame as well. And, yeah, it's about choosing the right women in life, and evidently Tim didn't do a good job of that. Let's move on to the next one, though, you guys. It is going to be Jim Miller, A10, plus 155, going up against Jared Flash Gordon at minus 180. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Minus 120. All right. Got those stats up. Need another sip of my beverage. All right. Let's break this one down. So, Jim Miller's advantages. Jim's got a 3-inch reach advantage, and he's the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup in this fight. In the most obvious statement I'm going to make this year, everyone, Jim Miller is going to have the experience advantage here. He's got 27 more pro fights, 190 more minutes in the pro cage, and over 5 more years as a pro fighter. He also has 14 more UFC fights and 100 more minutes in the octagon since 2013 compared to Jared Gordon. Jim is the way better finisher. He's finished 10 of his 13 wins since 2013. He's got 3 knockouts and 7 submissions. And he's also been the more durable fighter, as Jared Gordon is known for being chinny and has been finished in 4 of his 5 UFC losses. And he's only 6 weeks removed from being knocked out by Bobby Green. It was ruled a no contest, but it doesn't change the fact that his head was bouncing off the canvas. Miller's been finished in only 5 of 14 UFC losses since 2013, so he's the more durable guy here. Jim is going to be the more dangerous submission grappler in this spot. He averages 1.08 submission attempts per 15 minutes, while Jared Gordon has never even attempted a submission in the UFC. And Jim has 7 UFC wins by submission since 2013. So if Gordon wants to take this fight to the ground to win minutes, he could be playing with fire there. Jim has fought and beaten the more experienced UFC fighters, and I would say Miller's wins are a little bit better than Gordon's, according to my metric. But for Jared Gordon, the advantages are that he's 5 years younger than Jim Miller, and he's 1 inch taller. Jared is such a good minute winner wherever the fight goes. At distance striking range, he's got a positive 1.72 distance striking differential. He's got a 51% accuracy and a 63.3% distance striking defense. He's also winning 75%. I just screwed that up. Where's the undo? There we go. 75% of the control time positions he's been in while averaging 2.01 takedowns per 15 minutes. So Jared can find ways to win minutes wherever the fight goes. Miller absorbs more strikes at distance than he lands, and he only wins 34% of the control time positions he's been in. So Gordon wins minutes precisely how Jim Miller loses them. Jared Gordon is 11 wins and 1 loss in decisions in his career, and his only decision loss to Paddy Pimblett was total fucking bullshit. So we all know that Jared Gordon should be 12 wins and 0 losses in decision. So I always think of Jared as an elite minute winner who needs to avoid losing moments. As I mentioned before, Jared is the better minute winner at distance striking range. We can clearly see that as he lands almost 3 more distance strikes per minute than Miller. He absorbs about the same amount. He throws about 3.5 more distance strike attempts per minute. And even though his opponents throw 2 more, he's showing the much better defense and the much better accuracy. So Jared's a great minute winner at distance striking range, and he's the more active wrestler. And Miller has only shown 52% takedown defense at the UFC level. So that's another path for Jared to win minutes in this fight, is to take down Jim Miller and ride out some minutes on the ground in top control and some ground and pound. In summary, I think this fight goes one of 2 ways. Either Gordon wins the minutes and cruises to a decision win, or Gordon gets sparked on the feet or careless on the mat and he loses inside the distance, either gets knocked out or gets caught up in a submission from Miller. I don't really see Gordon getting a finish or Miller winning a decision. I think the 2 most likely outcomes are Gordon by decision, Miller inside the distance. I really do worry about the quick turnaround coming off a knockout for Gordon, but I think he does enough to win this fight by decision. So that's going to be my pick, but I'm going to keep an eye where the Miller inside the distance or where the Miller KO props open up. If they're juicy enough, they just might tickle your Uncle Weezy's fancy enough for me to take a small shot here, but I am going to pick Jared Gordon to win this fight by decision. Gordon by decision if he can avoid a big left hand from Jim Miller. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Brandon saying it's not cleaner, though. He's only been focused on the shitty things that happened to him. Yeah, I hear you. Might sprinkle Jim KO1 just for fun. Yeah, that's not a bad look, Daz Files. I think that's a good way to do that. Coming into this late, death taxes and Arlovski overs. Yeah, man, you got that right, dude. Is that my guy Luke? Dude, look at that. He's got a little bit of a different look there. It's not the sparring with reality logo there. It's just a good picture of Luke. Good to see you in here, man. Daz Dillinger saying, not sure what the odds are, but I think this fight doesn't go to decision, might be in my 3-legger. Okay, there we go. And Silky B saying, big ups, Weezy. What's up, Silky B? Good to see you hanging out in here, man. Let's get to the co-main event here, as we're an hour and 38 minutes into this week's Just the Tip. Alex Caceres versus Daniel the Pit Pineda. Caceres minus 180. The Pit plus 155. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juiced up at minus 250 for this one here. So let's get this up on the screen and go to the stats. Alex Caceres advantages. Alex has nice measurables advantages here as he's 3 years younger, 3 inches taller, and has a 4-inch reach advantage in addition to being the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Alex has the UFC experience advantage with 14 more UFC fights since 2013 and 190 more minutes in the octagon. Alex is definitely the better minute winner, as Pineda has a 100% career finish rate in his wins, but he's 0-5 in his career in decisions, while Alex Caceres is 7-4 in his UFC decisions. Alex has been the better minute and moment winner at distance striking range. He's got a positive 1.22 distance striking differential, as we see here. He's got a 67.5% distance striking defense, and he's very durable. He's only been knocked out once in a 34-fight pro career. In addition, Alex has 5 UFC knockdowns, while Pineda only has 1. But it's the same knockdowns per total significant strikes landed percentage here for both of these guys. Alex has 14 more UFC fights, so he's fought the better brand of competition, and my metric likes his UFC wins better than Pineda's. But for Daniel Pineda, the advantages are that he's more experienced overall with 11 more pro fights and 1.5 more years as a professional. Daniel's an incredible finisher. He's got a mind-blowing 100% finish rate over 28 pro wins. He has a ton of power on the feet, but where he really excels in winning minutes is with his submission grappling. On the feet, Daniel has really nasty low leg kicks, which can be a problem for Caceres, who's got a wide traditional martial arts stance, which is going to leave that lead leg out there for Daniel to target. And you don't want Daniel Pineda targeting your lower lead leg. I'll tell you that right now. And Daniel is probably the more opportunistic submission grappler. He's got 19 career wins by submission, and Alex has lost by sub in 7 of his 13 pro losses. So even though both guys are excellent grapplers, I think Pineda might actually have the edge there. So this should be a wild fight as long as it lasts. I like the measurables and minute-winning advantages Caceres has, but Pineda is always a problem. He is so dangerous. He's opportunistic wherever the fight goes, and his low leg kicks are absolutely nasty. He forces you to fight and make mistakes, so he's good at capitalizing on those mistakes. I'm going to pick Pineda to win this fight. I think it's going to be mostly a grappling match, and I favor Pineda on the ground. I think he'll be more dangerous on the feet as well due to those low leg kicks. I think taking the dog shot on Pineda isn't the worst plan this week, as he should be the more dangerous fighter wherever this fight goes. And if he wins moments in 2 rounds, he could even win a decision, even though he's never once done that in his pro career. Caceres is a pretty durable guy, very difficult to knock out. So if you don't sub him, we could see Pineda land, a big shot in 1 round, maybe get a takedown in another round, and he could potentially win a decision. Definitely not a very likely outcome, but because I think it's even possible, I'm kind of leaning, that Pineda wins this fight. And I think that the plus 150, plus 145 money line on him might not be a bad look this week. Caceres has been hot. The only guy to beat him recently is Sadiq Youssef. But, Pineda's a guy that just can fuck up your game plan. Like if you have a plan, against Pineda, he can just make that plan change by being really aggressive, by just throwing 100% power into all of his strikes, forcing you into a very uncomfortable fight where you're playing too much defense, making you concentrate on that defense too much, maybe making you panic wrestle. And then once you're in the grappling exchanges with him, he's looking to finish you. So I'm going to go with the dog here in Daniel Pineda. And I think he's going to get this one done by 2nd round submission over Bruce Leroy. Pineda might still have a little something left in the tank here. And if he does, I think he's more dangerous wherever this fight goes. So I will pick him to win. And that brings us to the main event of the evening. A complete pick'em here between Kai Kara Don't Blink France and Amir the Prince Albazi. Both of these guys minus 110. Fight doesn't go to decision. Sitting up at minus 170 for this fight. So let's bring up the stats here. And let's first start talking about Amir Albazi because he's a little bit younger here and he's 1 inch taller. But it's going to be Kai Kara France who's got the experience advantage. 18 more professional fights. Almost 200 more minutes in the pro cage. 6 more fights at the UFC level. About 80 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both of these guys are really good finishers. Amir Albazi has finished 3 of his 4 UFC wins. Kai Kara France has finished 2 of his 7 UFC wins. And Amir Albazi has never been finished, but he's only lost once in his career. And Kai Kara France has been finished 6 times in 10 losses. And he's been finished in 2 of his 3 UFC losses. Both of these guys win more minutes or win more fights than they lose by decision. But while this is on the feet, we think of Kara-France being a very dangerous striker. He's got 6 knockdowns in 10 UFC fights. He's got a positive 0.88 distance striking differential, a positive 0.93 distance strike attempt differential, 65.67% distance striking defense. He's been knocked down 4 times. And Amir's got good boxing as well. He's got a positive 0.57 distance striking differential, and he throws about 1.18 more distance strikes per minute than his opponents do. When it comes to the wrestling, we could definitely count on Amir Albazi being the more active wrestler and being the guy that's going to go to the grappling more in this spot. He averages 2.47 takedowns per 15 minutes, while it's only a half for Kara-France. But Kara-France has shown excellent takedown defense, everybody. 87.8% takedown defense. He's stuffed 36 of 41 takedowns attempted against him. So his opponents are attempting over 4 takedowns per fight against him, and he's only allowing 12.7% control time, winning 45% of the control time positions that he's been in. So he's very difficult to take down and hold down. And if you can't do that, and you expend too much energy trying to, especially in a 5-round fight, when we've never seen Amir Albazi ever be scheduled for 5 rounds in his pro career, Amir's going to have to be very efficient with that wrestling, in my opinion, in order to win this fight. I don't think that either one of them is much better on the feet, but I do favor Kara-France. He's definitely more experienced. We've definitely seen him have more success with his striking at the UFC level against much higher level competition. And that's the big thing here, you guys. The combined record of the 10 guys that Kara-France has faced in the UFC is 44 wins and 32 losses. The combined record of the 4 guys that Amir Albazi has faced in the UFC is 5 wins and 12 losses. So not only has Amir Albazi never fought in a main event, not only has he never been scheduled for 5 rounds, he's stepping up from Alessandro Costa to Kara-France here. His wins are over Francisco Figueiredo and Malcolm Gordon and Zhalgas Zhumagulov. And if you go back and watch that Zhumagulov fight, man, it was close. It was very close. I thought Zhumagulov won the 2nd round pretty cleanly there, and I thought the 3rd round was very close, but I did score the 1st for Albazi. This is a spot that I'm leaning Kara-France. I definitely liked the plus money early, like about 2 weeks ago. You could have got Kara-France around plus 140, plus 150, and that made a lot more sense than the pick'em line here, because I do think that while Kara-France is the better striker, that Amir Albazi is the better grappler, the more willing wrestler, and he's controlling his opponents almost 40% of his UFC cage time while only allowing 2.25%. And he's winning 95% of the control time positions that he's been in. So I think that Amir definitely can win some minutes with the grappling here, but this is a 5-round fight. Conditioning matters, pacing matters. And if you're counting on one guy in a 5-round fight to win with striking and the other guy to win with grappling, and you're picking the grappler when he's never went 5 rounds before, you're making a lot of assumptions. I don't want to make those assumptions. So I'm going to pick Kara-France, and I'm going to pick him to win this fight by decision. Because we've never seen Albazi be finished, I don't know, if how durable he is, how much heart he is. He hasn't been put in a spot yet where we've really had to see Albazi work his way out of bad spots. But he's a very talented fighter. He's very well-rounded, trains at a good camp. So I do think this is going to be a very close fight. But I'm leaning with the experience and the power and the strength of schedule of Kara-France and the 5-round experience here of Kara-France. So that gets us through all 13 fights, you guys. This is normally the part where I would show you my tracked bets for this week. Well, my tracked bet was the over 2.5 rounds in the Mullarkey Kutateladze fight at plus 140. So that's been voided because that fight is not happening. So I'm looking for new bets now. Bets that I'm considering. Ketlen Souza by decision. Maybe a small play on Jim Miller by knockout. What else were we looking at here? Nurmagomedov by decision at plus 150 or better might be something I consider. The Daniel Pineda money line is something that I'm considering at plus money here. Minus 170 for the over 2.5 rounds in Arlovski versus Mays is something that I might be looking to parlay this week. But as far as having any track bets so far, I'm going to finish up looking at my spots over the next couple of days. And for those of you who are on the Patreon, keep an eye on the Weezy's tracked bets section of the Discord, and I'll let you know when I'm tracking this weekend looking to win. And obviously, we'll put together a greasy 4-leg parlay later on in the week for you guys and try to get on a 2-week winning streak there. But that gets us through all the predictions, which leaves us now with only one order of business left in the night. And this has been a very, very difficult week in order to find an ass shaving of the week, you guys. Because, when we're looking for Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, we're looking for a guy who did what Anthony Hernandez did to Edmund Shabazian, 2 weeks ago. You break your opponent. You go out there and you make him wear you like a cheap suit for 2.5 rounds and then pound his fucking head into the canvas until the referee comes and pulls you off of him. I love it when the ass shaving of the week breaks their opponent, but I got a lot of guys winning by decision this week. I've got a lot of close fights this week. So I have to ask myself, which one of these guys is not just going to win, but do it violently, right? Do it in a way that make you go, oh, shit, right? Who's going to do that? And I'm having a real hard time. What do you guys think? Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Let me know who you think should be the ass shaving of the week this week, because I can already tell you what's going to happen. I already know who I'm going with. But and let's see here. But I think fight goes to decision might mean by 3-legger. And yeah, fight to go the distance. And my guy Brandon Ortega, ring a ding ding, $20 donation for his Uncle Weezy here. Much appreciated, my man. Saying, sorry I'm talking so much. Not here often, and it's worth it. Everyone connect and let's build this mama community with discussion, stats, and Weezy's Patreon. I've been here since 2019, and it's hands down best. Brandon, I truly appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for joining the Patreon. I appreciate you for supporting me on YouTube, for watching, for hitting that thumbs up button. It really helps me out when you guys support the show, and Brandon did it bigly tonight, so I really appreciate you, my man. Thank you for hanging out with us. Jared couldn't finish my sandwich. Maybe. Yeah, Jared Gordon is not a finisher. Caverns, round 3 take TKO. You're talking about Caceres? You're talking about Caceres. Yeah, Caceres, yes. Face fuchsia tongue out. Daz Dillinger saying if Pineda is a finisher, he doesn't get a finish, he'll get finished. That's a possibility. Yeah, man. Mark Schillingberg saying, what's good, Weezy? Late as fuck, but I'm going to head back to the start and probably finish up tomorrow. Just wanted to say, oi, everyone smash the like, share and sub, and show Weezy some love. He's bringing it every week. I appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for hanging out, man. Kiwi saying, sure, all been late all day. What's up? Welcome in here. We got Daz, I agree, says Brandon. Looks like 45 watching, only 29 like. That's 16 people slacking. If you ask me, smash that effing like. Let's go. Let's smash that like, you guys. Let's face it. It's bloody hard to take down a little germ. Yeah, it is, man. It is. Mythical round 2 Miller. Dude, you never know, man. He got that finish against the Ghost Pepper in round 2. He got that finish against the other, what was it, Mota in round 2, right? What was it, Mota? Yeah, Mota round 2, Eric Gonzalez round 2, and I don't know if the Cerrone sub was in round 2 or in round 1, but yeah, man, and he almost had Alexander Hernandez in that fight too, so this is going to be a good one, man. And Usman Anjum saying Mullarkey. Yeah, I'm not picking Mullarkey for this week's ass shaving of the week. Frankly, I don't think anybody really just goes out there and shaves ass, but in order for me to do this correctly, to get the guy that I think might actually win the most violently, I'm going to have to give you an underdog this week, you guys. So let me get my banners up here. I'm going to type it out because I wasn't even ready. So we're going to go, and I'm going to type it out for you guys. Enter show plus 150 underdog Daniel Pineda, low leg kicks, submission attempts. Look, we've seen Alex Caceres be very durable. We've seen him be very susceptible to the submission, and Daniel Pineda's submission game is excellent. Love the low leg kicks. I think if he lands a few low leg kicks early, he might actually force Alex Caceres to wrestle, which means he might actually get what he wants and start to get to hunt for those subs. He could wrestle himself and win minutes with the wrestling or get a submission from top control. I think if one guy wins and wins really violently this week, it's going to be Daniel the Pit Pineda. So we're giving you a plus money ass shaving of the week. I will be getting to a Daniel Pineda money line bet this week. And let's hope that Daniel Pineda can shave the ass of Alex Caceres so we can continue on the ass shaving of the week heater that we have been on. We're going to be looking out for a greasy four-leg parlay that'll be put out on Friday here. Keep an eye out tomorrow night maybe for some content here. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not. Still working on a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff here. And I'm going to be putting this new spreadsheet up for next week on the Patreon, where we have the divisional benchmarks programmed into every sheet so that you see how Arman Sarukian is doing against the takedown accuracy benchmark for the division. How many takedowns per minute people get, how many they attempt. You can just see a lot of green here in the grappling for Arman, that he gets the job done in the grappling exchanges. But this is a phenomenal spreadsheet, and I'm hoping that a lot of you guys feel inspired to sign up, spend $10 a month on this to not only support your Uncle Weezy, help me continue to do this work full time, but also make yourself better gamblers by having access to the best analytics and statistics in the game, which are provided by me, your host, Uncle Weezy. 43 you guys still hanging out in here live. I appreciate each and every one of you. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join the Patreon if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 74. Keep an eye out for me tomorrow, 6 o'clock Central Time on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel for the DFS show alongside my guys DFS by the Numbers, Monk and Gordo Gambles. Keep an eye out for the Greasy Four-Leg Parlay tomorrow night and potentially an Ask Weezy tomorrow night here at 10 o'clock. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow. God bless each and every one of you guys, and let's stack them high for UFC Vegas 74. Take care, everyone. Good night.